Going live in two places all at once. I have two of my own faces in front of me, and it's a little bizarre. And if you're on Zoom, you can see my pillows in the background. And we've got some construction going on here today, and I'm really hoping that it is not too loud. So I've got some questions here to answer on relationships and communication. I've got some really good ones. I'm so glad men are participating. That's really nice. So I'm going to do my first question from what appears to be an account. Someone who is not female. So give me just 1 second. I've got all my questions living in... I had questions coming in from a couple different places, so I've got them saved in different ways. So I have somebody asking here, 15 years married, 2 kids, need help with high, low libido. There goes our contractor. High, low libido polarity. The negative cycle is so painful. Yeah, so this is such a huge source of miscommunication, hurt feelings, resentment. And when we can't get on the same page in this department and it goes on for a long period of time, I find it can start to poison other parts of the relationship, which is not ideal and not fun. So I think a little bit of education goes a really long way in this department. It's why I did a whole podcast on this subject with Dr. Lori Mintz. She's a sexologist, psychologist, emeritus professor, and author and sex drive researcher. So she has written the book A Tired Woman's Guide to Passionate Sex, and also the book Becoming Clitorate, which is the best book title ever. And a few of the things that she outlines that I think everybody should understand if you're in a if you're in a heterosexual relationship, period. But even my clients who are not heterosexual have issues with differences in drive. But in a heterosexual relationship where there's a man and a woman, what I like to start off with is that testosterone plays a huge part in drive. And Dr. Lori Mintz educates us about this with her testosterone tank. So she illustrates what looks to be like a gas tank in a car. And if you picture a gas tank, which way should I go? 9/10. What's your full and what's your empty? So this would be your empty full. So if you picture a gas tank 9/10 full, that's how much testosterone a man has. And if you picture a gas tank 1/10 full, that's how much testosterone a woman has. So with testosterone playing a huge part in drive, she says in her book, A Tired Woman's Guide to Passionate Sex, that a man, 9/10 of a tank full, can be standing in a pile of elephant feces, see a beautiful woman walk by, think about sex. A woman can be on her way to the bedroom, full intentions of having sex, see a dirty sock on the floor, and it's all over. So, especially when women have young children in the home, because stress, lack of sleep, and caregiving are the top 3 things that can get in the way of testosterone levels and drive. That's... Darn it. I knew it. Uh-oh. Hang on, everybody. You fell off. I'm sticking you back on. My sticky thing isn't working like I want it to. I might have to come up with another solution. So, stress, lack of sleep, caregiving. When you're in those years with young kids in the home, there is a dip in a woman's drive over the lifespan, and that low in that bottom of the U is very scientifically called young children in the home. However, there are 2 different types of drive. There's spontaneous drive and responsive drive. Am I saying that right? Spontaneous and responsive. Son of a gun. I'm hooking you on. But I just might be more towards the bottom of the screen if you're on Instagram. So there's spontaneous. I feel like I'm not saying it. And reactive or responsive, one of those things. I feel like I'm having a tip of the tongue thing going on here. But if you have spontaneous drive, like that spontaneous drive is what's most associated with men's drive, okay? There's not a whole lot of stimulus needed to have a response. They can just have drive, they just have drive. See a beautiful woman walk by standing in a pile of elephant feces, think about sex. But for people with responsive desire, that's it. That's right. People with responsive desire might need a stimulus before they have desire. So women with low drive will often say things to me like, it's good once we get going, but getting there is hard. Getting there is difficult. And if that's the case, I think that some education goes a long way in knowing that we don't have to, our loins don't have to be on fire from the get-go. It doesn't have to look like what's on TV or in the movies or in porn. In fact, it probably won't if you want to have a healthy relationship that's monogamous and long-term. It won't look like that, and that's okay. And you might have to turn on your partner with responsive desire. But I think that sometimes, if you're a woman and you don't have that spontaneous desire maybe that you once used to, perhaps in the beginning of your relationship, which is very common, you can start to wonder what's wrong with you. Not a very sexy thought. Men can start to think, is she not attracted to me? Which my educated guess working with couples for almost 20 years is that it probably doesn't, for her, have much to do with, a lot of the times, it doesn't have much to do with physical attractiveness, because physical attractiveness tends to be on the bottom of priorities of attraction for women. So a little bit of education goes a long way. There's a ton of it in the free podcast. And we also, if you want to go beyond the podcast is called How to Talk About It with Micah Ross. That is episode 2 with Dr. Lori Mintz. And then if you want to go I made the balloons pop up on Instagram. If you want to go beyond the podcast, we have a workshop on drive. And if you just, if you DM us workshop, our little robot responder will just instantly send you the link to all our workshops. Got it? I love all the hearts that I'm seeing. Thanks, guys. Okay, next question. My mother passed away last week. I'm so sorry. I haven't heard from my in-laws. Is it time to cut ties? I cannot tell you if it's time for you to cut ties or not. And I'm wondering, it sounds like this is not the first disappointing interaction that you've had with your in-laws. Please excuse me while I try to make this angle. I did it, okay. It sounds like not the first time you've had a disappointing interaction with your in-laws. And perhaps there's a pileup of not totally resolved issues. I can't tell you that. And how do I make that decision for myself? Well, one, let's just start with, I believe that the title of family is earned. The title of family is earned. It's not just something you get that's automatic. And yeah, I think you're gonna have to decide, like, what does this relationship give you? I don't know about cutting ties long term. That's something that you'll have to decide. And it definitely sounds like the thought of being around them currently would be really hard if they haven't acknowledged that your mother passed, and that you've had a big loss. So it sounds like for now, absolutely, you need some distance and space, and see how that goes. Do it for a while and think about, do you miss them? Are you hurt by this? Is it worth addressing with them? Does it feel like a relationship that it deserves the time and energy that, to address this kind of big hurt? So those are some things to think about. But yeah, it sounds like definitely right now you can't want to be in their presence. And I'm sorry that sucks. But generally with toxic relationships, which I'm not calling this a toxic relationship. I don't have enough information to do that. But generally with toxic relationships, if somebody's addicted to a toxic substance like cocaine, and somebody kicks it to the curb, everybody's like, yes, good for you. Way to go. kick cocaine to the curb. But you have a toxic mother or mother-in-law or parent or sister, and people are like, but what if they get hit by a bus tomorrow? So you have to decide, is this relationship something that you dread? Are you getting things from this relationship? Is there a give and take? I also don't expect spouses or two people to feel the same about another person, or to have the same. If I don't want to be around somebody, I don't need my husband to feel the same way about that. He's on his own timetable. He's got his own history with these people. So yeah, finding a way to get the space that you need while also not imposing that on other people if it's not something that they want. And finding a way to do that through a lot of great communication, which our Learn How to Fight course can be really great at helping you get through tough conversations. DM us workshop and we'll send you the link to all our workshops. But yeah, what a terrible, I really hope their voicemail just got lost in space or something. That would be something. Okay. All right, next question. When I tell my partner I'm upset, they give me all the reasons why I shouldn't be upset. Ooh, you don't get to tell me how I'm feeling. The things they do, they also say the things they do right, or the things I should be and am thankful for. When I call this to his attention, he says, well, I guess I shouldn't do those things. Dead end. It's a horrible cycle and makes me shut off. How do we get out of it? Yeah, okay. So if your partner is getting defensive in interactions that don't go well or get stuck, always have 2 ingredients. It's a very simple, always the same 2-ingredient recipe: perceived criticism and defensiveness. You're getting met with defensiveness. That means what? He perceived criticism. I was thumbs up I guess I did thumbs down, and on Instagram it shot you a thumbs up. So if he's getting defensive, that means he's perceived criticism. And it sounds like what you're doing is saying, well, you're getting defensive. Will you point out his part? That's a really tricky thing. You might be very justified and super accurate in what you're perceiving his part to be. And as long as we're focused on the other person's part of the problem, we are not solution focused. And it will likely be eliciting more defensiveness from the listener, from the person that you're talking to. So I encourage people to focus on their part. Hang on a minute. It seems like you're getting defensive. That must have sounded like criticism. Let me try to say that in another way. So that's acknowledging, we got off track. And, I might be playing a part. I might be able to. Now, whether your part is in the moment, let's say you said what you wanted and needed, what hurt, what you were afraid of really clearly, and your husband or partner still heard criticism. That might be due to part of nonverbal communication is history of the relationship. So if your partner has perceived you to historically be critical, you could do everything right in this moment, but there's that poop-colored lens there, keeping them from hearing your intent and your meaning accurately. That's a really tricky, unfun part of communication, and it's a whole module in the Learn How to Fight course where we address how to check out and address intent and meaning in a meaningful way that gets you unstuck in interactions. So addressing the perceived criticism and defensiveness, taking it upon yourself to do or say it in a different way. Also, there's probably 7 ways to skin this cat. Hang on, I think you're hearing criticism. Let me try to say that in another way. Or hang on, it seems like you're getting defensive. What criticism did you hear me say? And then once that person feels heard, we want to postpone persuasion until we can paraphrase our partner's perspective to their liking, the 5 Ps. Once that person feels heard, they will be more likely to be persuaded. So the reason you're not being persuaded in these conversations when your partner stacks up the evidence for why you shouldn't be feeling this way is because you don't feel heard first. You want to postpone persuasion until you can paraphrase your partner's perspective to their liking. So that's one side of it, but the other side, so dealing with that person's defensiveness is one thing, but dealing with the fact that you need to feel heard in this interaction is a whole other thing. So hang on, I'm in total agreement that you do all of that stuff, but I feel like we might not be hearing each other. Can you tell me what you heard me say? I'm not sure I'm saying this clearly. So that is one way to drag somebody into a paraphrase. Paraphrases, for them to be wildly effective, they don't have to be accurate at all. The goal of a paraphrase is to not get it right. You can't do it wrong. Even if you say, what did you hear me say? And he says, I hear you're saying that I'm an incompetent, lazy nincompoop again. And you're like, oh God, that now you get to, okay, I can see how that would make you angry. Hang on, let me try to say that another way. Is really different than, that's not what I'm saying, you shouldn't feel that way, which is what you see what I'm saying? What he's doing to you, okay? So, tons more. I know I make it sound really easy and I can say it really fast. If you want more in-depth information, the Learn How to Fight course is the place to go to get unstuck from communication sticking points like this. DM us workshop and we'll send you. I feel like this is an infomercial all of a sudden, but I mean, I put all that info in places for a reason. Okay, somebody says, stop lecturing. Stop lecturing when you have a need to feel heard. Co-parent dismissive of concerns. What do I think you're asking? So let me just address teaching a lesson or lecturing. I understand it's what a lot of us grew up with in terms of parenting style. It's what we saw as children of parents. Many of us, it's like what we define parenting as is teaching our kids lessons. But teaching somebody a lesson, I outline in the free training, How to Not Get Stuck. I outline this umbrella of things that can be considered criticism in a relationship, which criticism is relationally damaging. Dr. John Gottman studied relationships. He's the leading researcher on marriage and relationships in our country, the United States, and he can predict divorce with up to a 93% success rate just by coding 4 things, and one of those things is criticism, and the other is defensiveness. So I gotta stop throwing up the peace sign in these. If you're on Zoom, whenever I do this on Instagram, it throws up balloons. So lecturing is a form of criticism. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm smart, you're stupid. I'm sane, you're crazy. So you know, it's an interesting ride when you make that a standard in your home, when you have that standard for yourself. So if somebody's teaching me a lesson, I say, as long as you want to teach me a lesson, I have to walk away. But what do you need? I'm all for hearing what people need, what people want, what hurts, what they're afraid of. Those things are all very easy to hear, but very hard to say because they require some degree of vulnerability. And when somebody is in blame and criticism mode, their brain literally can't access the parts of their brain responsible for cognition and behavior. But also when somebody's in blame and criticism mode, they can't get to what they need to get to a resolution, which is that vulnerability. So what do you need is a question that forces somebody to be self-reflective. People cannot be self-reflective and in blame and criticism simultaneously. Those two modes of the brain are incompatible. So a question like that, like in a caring way, like, as long as you want to teach me a lesson, I have to walk away, which is saying, here's my line. I always find that when people start learning about boundaries, they'll use the word boundary when they're making boundaries, which is in and of itself teaching a lesson, like, you're doing it wrong, so I'm having a boundary. I'm having a boundary with this. But as long as you want to teach me a lesson, like, I have to walk away. And intent matters. So I could say that, like, you're teaching me a lesson. As long as you do that, I have to walk away. Do you see? Do you feel the difference? But what do you need? Like, I really care about what you need. What do you need? So dragging somebody into their need is often helpful, but in our house, my whole family knows that I won't tolerate being taught a lesson. It's not going to get us from where we are to where we want to be. It's not going to get us to a resolution. It's not going to have anybody feeling more seen, more heard, more understood. It's just going to cause defensiveness and attack. So I remember one of the first times that my oldest daughter said that to my husband. She said, "Stop teaching me a lesson." Could she have done that better? Yes. Was she 8? Probably also yes. And he came downstairs and was like, "Thanks a lot," to me. But I want to know when my kids feel like they're being taught a lesson, because what that tells me is I am shut off. I am no longer receptive to what you're saying, and I am resistant. So whatever's coming out of my mouth doesn't really matter anyway. But let me go back to the question. Stop lecturing when you have a need to feel heard. Co-parent is dismissive of concerns. Oh, now I'm reading that a whole nother way. Regarding co-parenting, or getting on the same page regarding parenting, I encourage people to find a third page, because it is really hard to be our partner's teacher. I tell people often that we cannot be our partner's teachers. And so finding a third page that you both can agree on, that is neither your page nor the other person's page, is great to have as a reference, or, that's the thing that you're referring to, like, hey, remember that thing, or that page we agreed on. Remember that page we agreed on where she was like, teaching a lesson is criticism, and it might... Okay, so what could we do instead? So yeah, you don't want to lecture somebody, because you'll get a defensive version of them. Sounds like it's, now I'm reading this as you might be like you have a hard time keeping yourself from lecturing when a co-parent is dismissive of concerns. So when somebody's dismissive of concerns and you feel that way, now that's the thing that has to be addressed. We're not compiling evidence. Don't resist the urge to compile evidence for why you're right, because what's happened is you have that urge because that's what's been done to you. Somebody says you shouldn't be feeling the way you're feeling, so then you start compiling evidence to say, well, you shouldn't be feeling the way you're feeling. And two wrongs don't make a right, and that's just throwing gasoline on the fire. Like, it feels like, I feel like when I have concerns, they're just totally dismissed. Like, is now not a good time to talk, or when would be a good time to talk to figure out how we can get on the same page about this? Like, and they might be feeling criticized. Like, I'm wondering if you're feeling criticism when I say this kind of stuff, and then try to clean that up. Okay. These are all from Instagram, and it's like people are trying to fit their questions in this tiny little box. I'd love to hear more about honesty versus shaming. So let's talk about shame versus guilt. Shame is, I am bad, there's something wrong with me. Broad sweep generalizations about my character, or person, or makeup, or being. Okay? There's something wrong with me. I am bad. Guilt is more specific about behavior. I made a mistake. I did something that wasn't okay or helpful, or that I would do differently next time. Shame is associated with all kinds of things that we don't want in life. Shame is associated with anxiety, depression, addiction, suicide, all kinds of stuff. Shame is associated with a lot of stuff that we don't want. Guilt is associated actually with a lot of stuff that we do want, if in appropriate doses. Okay, so if you make a mistake, you feel that pang of guilt. It can be motivating to do something different next time, or to apologize, or to make it right, or to do something better. So guilt is really different than shame. But stress in and of itself is motivating to a point. And then this is increased stress So my graph on the bottom, stress increasing. Oh, float trip bruise. And this is stress increasing motivation, this side. So stress increases motivation to a point, and then beyond that point, it decreases motivation. We all know what it feels like to get overwhelmed and then just be like you splatter. So honesty versus shame is really checking out your intent. Are you addressing this when you're at a 2 out of 10 on the anger, frustration, irritation scale? Are you at the point when you're an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10? And it's hard to not be in blame and criticism mode. It's hard for that fight or flight response to not be triggered. And it's hard to not come at someone like there's something, what the F is wrong with you? If you're at that point, this is not the point to be addressing stuff. I need you to walk away, wait till your beats per minute get under 100, and ask yourself, what do you want? What do you need? What hurts? What are you afraid of? Talk about that stuff and resist the urge to be shaming somebody. In this moment, are you justified to feel like something is wrong with somebody? Probably. And you've probably let things go on for too long without addressing them, and that is part of why you feel that way. So addressing things when you're at a 2 out of 10, not an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10 can be the difference. But in that moment, it'll really feel like this is true. But what's going to be true and helpful? What you want, what you need, what hurts, what you're afraid of. I have a big story that I tell about that in the Learn How to Fight course when my husband and I were first living together, and Friday nights would come and I'd want to go out in the town and he'd want to stay in, and I was like, what is wrong with you that you want to stay in? We're in our 20s, we should be living it up. And he was like, what is wrong with you that you want to stay here? And I was making him wrong, bad, and boring and nerdy for wanting to stay home, and he was making me wrong, bad, and immature for wanting to go out. So those conversations went nowhere fast and escalated pretty quickly, as you can imagine. Until I was in graduate school at the time, I learned some really helpful stuff about communication. And I came home, I had gotten really clear about what I wanted, what I needed, what hurt, and what I was afraid of. And I said, I really want you to come out on Friday nights. I had also realized that we were both extremely extroverted, but I had realized that throughout the week I had not used any of my extroverted energy in my work or at school. And he had likely in sales used all of his extroverted energy. And by the time Friday came around, I felt like a caged animal, and he just wanted to retreat. And I said to him, I really want you to come out with me on Friday nights. And when you don't want to, it makes me worried that that we're not compatible and that you don't like me. And it ultimately makes me afraid that you don't love me. And when I said that, I started to cry, which was really different than making him wrong and bad in our previous conversations, which would escalate or shut him down. And he was like, what? He's like, no, I want you to stay here with me because I'm in sales. I don't have any extroverted energy left by the end of the week. I can't want to see other people. But he's like, but I want to see you. I want you in my bubble. But it's like all of a sudden he understood that I just had a different need on Friday and I understood that his needs were different than mine on Friday. And we kind of looked at each other and he was like, okay, well then go. And I was like, okay, stay. So our behaviors really didn't change that much, but the level of understanding changed. And the meaning that we were attaching to him not coming with me or me not staying with him was different. And, it was like, well, let's hang out on Saturday then. The win-win, finding something that works for both of us. So don't remember what question I was initially answering. Honesty versus shame. Yeah, so initially I think we were just shaming each other. There's something wrong with you. What the frick is wrong with you that you don't want to go out on Friday in your 20s? Okay, and then I think I got them all. Did I get them all? I'm sure you all have asked me questions in the chat that I'm not able to keep. I'm just a one-woman show here. Yeah, I don't see any questions in the chat. Okay, guys. I think we did it. Thanks for joining me. If you have any questions, let me know. You can DM me. I'm happy to answer. If you are in a Relate Well membership, on the Relate Well Hub, there is always a little box, little link where you can click it and submit questions for Q&A. So if you think of any at any time, be sure to submit those and we'll get those answered as soon as possible. And especially in the Q&As. I feel like I'm missing a question. No, I don't think I am. All right, y'all. Have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon.